sort of chordophones. They're kind of old folk instruments with different strings and different tunings. So when we started, this was sort of like we were overdubbing these on the usual rock and roll songs that we wrote. But now we've just done away with the guitars altogether, and it's all about writing and performing on these chordophones, even though we're still singing in English and writing, socially conscious rock and roll music.
That is awesome. We have got a great guest with us today. He joins us live here on the Sunday radio broadcast, Lusitanian Ghosts. So tell me about Lusitanian Ghosts.
Lusitanian, actually.
Lusitanian.
It's
that.
Lusitania.
Jiggy-jag, the ugly American strikes again. Go ahead.
Lusitania is one of the names for the Celtic tribes that were here in Portugal before the Romans. And we use Lusitanian to sort of point to the roots of these really old instruments that we're using. Not to be confused with the Lusitania, which was a ship that was sunk, I think, during World War II, famous for all of the wrong reasons. So yeah, Lusitanian Ghosts, I mean, the ghosts are the actual instruments because they were pretty much extinct in the second half of the 20th century because Portugal at the time was under a fascist regime that just wanted people to listen to fado music because fado music teaches you to accept your fate and sort of be, keep your life on track and listen to the head of the family and the state and the church and that sort of thing. So the folk instruments weren't exactly welcome during those times. And a lot of them ended up in the fireplaces and, literally burned, not at the stake, but around different different villages. And we're sort of bringing them back. And it's not just Lusitanian Ghosts as a collective that is doing this. There's a lot of other interesting artists that are playing on the old instruments again and writing new material with them.
That is awesome. So we are going to play Long Black Train. Tell me a little bit about this track.
The Long Train is it's about life. It's about sort of the travails and the strife and staying the course of your commitments and finding happiness by staying true to yourself.
Well, it is a fantastic track. We are going to play it. It is called The Long Train. It is the stereo version, Lusitanian Ghosts, and we are going to put you on a brief hold here on Skype and play this. And when we come back, we will have more with Neil here on your Sunday radio broadcast.
Feel
Okay, that was the Long Train.
Shock me to the core.
To Neil, who is going to join us, Lusitanian Ghosts, and he's with us today here on our Sunday radio broadcast. So, Neil, tell me a little bit about your songwriting process with the group.
Okay, so, for this latest album, we actually, as I was saying, we gave up the 6-string guitars, and we've been writing on these chordophones. So mostly the way this record came about was my Swedish friend Mickey Ghost. He plays the viola marantina. And the way we went about the songs was I would send him some lyrics without any music. And then he would write on the viola marantina. He would write to those lyrics and then send them back to me between Lisbon and Stockholm. And then we did a pre-production round in Lisbon, and then we finally went to Hamburg to record it on analog tape at the Clouds Hill studio, which is an amazing playground to record in. It's really like a vintage palace of vintage gear. So we recorded on 2-inch tape, mixed down to 1/4-inch analog in mono and stereo, just because we could.
Wow. So, where can people buy your music and find your music and all these things?
It's distributed everywhere, of course, on all the digital platforms, and we're also doing the vinyl that's out. The 2 vinyl records in mono and stereo will be out in September. They'll be distributed here in Europe in a number of, or by a number of distributors, including, and Broken Silence from Germany has a stateside distributor, so they'll be available also in the States on vinyl, as well as digitally worldwide. Fantastic.
So what is the social media following like?
I think it's kind of I guess slowly developing. I think we're not sort of like 18-year-old. We're not a young group, so we're not like digital natives in the sense of always being on socials, promoting ourselves. So I think it's sort of a handicap that we might have, but it's coming along gradually, and it's actually, the new single is now on the Spotify New Music Fridays here in Portugal, which is nice, except Portugal's a rather small market, so it has a limited reach. But we're hoping to also come over and play some showcase festivals in Canada and the States, things like Canadian Music Week or South by Southwest, and getting the word out to more people.
That is awesome. We have got a great guest with us today. Neil joins us live here on our big program. So another popular track of yours is Lisbon Calling. Tell me a little bit about this.
Well, Lisbon Calling is sort of a tip of the hat to the Clash, really, with they had London Calling, and Lisbon Calling was sort of our response, if you will, to that Clash tune. It was written kind of tongue-in-cheek, but then it turned out to be sort of a live favorite at the concerts, and a lot of people enjoyed that track. So yeah, that's kind of a funny one. It's about all the tourism in Lisbon, and how the people that live here can no longer afford the city, but the tourists all love it because they bring money from outside and they can afford good meals and stuff.
Well, we are going to do this. I'm going to put you on another brief hold. We are going to play this track, and when we come back, we have got more from our guest, Lusitanian Ghosts. The fantastic Neil Leyton is with us. It is Lisbon Calling, and it's here on the Sunday Radio Show.
Calling on a faraway town, the center of the world just a few centuries ago. Lisbon calling from the edge of Europe, facing the new world, fashion again, yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. Interesting the way that ended. We are going to go back to our guest. He is going to join us live here on our big program via the magic of the old skip Skype. Yes, the old Skype-a-rooney. And so, who were some of your musical heroes and influences, Neil?
Right. I guess, I got into music listening to my mom's old Elvis Presley 45s. I grew up in Lisbon listening to Elvis Presley without speaking a word of English, and then moved to Canada at the age of 12.
Canada. That's right.
Yeah, and so I lived in. I was raised in Toronto. I went to university in Toronto. Started my first band there. But yeah, I think Elvis, Bowie. And then later I really got into the Britpop scene with Suede and the Manic Street Preachers, that sort of thing. Also Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. So Lusitanian Ghosts kind of brings together the folk and the rock and the alternative influences, I think. But very much, I'm into really good singers. So I like Elvis and Bowie as, I think, my two main vocal references.
That's awesome. One of the things I love about you guys is that you are a Portuguese, Canadian, Swedish project.
Right.
Which is absolutely amazing. Tell us
it doesn't make it easy to tour. But yeah, no, I mean, it's actually slightly more complex than that, because one of us is actually American. Abe, who plays the viola terceira, he was born in New York. And so, but he's got, his parents are Portuguese, but he was born in New York, whereas I'm Portuguese and I moved to Canada, so I wasn't North American to begin with. But so there is this sort of international collective. There's two Swedish guys, Mickey Ghost, who plays the viola marantina and also sings with me, Janne Olsen, who plays the bass, and then all the chordophone players are Portuguese, including Abe, who's American and Portuguese. So yeah, I mean, it's we've mostly played in Sweden and Portugal, also done a few shows in Germany, but we hope to get out to North America soon on this third album.
That is awesome. So tell me a little bit about the production process and the engineering process, mixing the album, all these things.
I hadn't recorded on 2-inch tape since my my solo record days back in Toronto. And we really felt the need to go back and record the old way, live off the floor, in 1 or 2 takes, onto the 2-inch tape, mixing without Pro Tools, just mixing straight to 1/4-inch tape. And Clouds Hill provided us with the a studio where you can still do that. There's not a lot of studios that have all the analog gear and proper mixing consoles to do that these days. And we just wanted it to sound really organic and keep that dynamic and the sort of freshness of the live off the floor approach, as opposed to all the digital editing that inevitably goes on when you record on Pro Tools or on a digital system. You fix the things that you think are mistakes, but actually when you listen to the Stones or you listen to old records, that's what makes music special. It's all the little quirks and the things that happen spontaneously. So we wanted to make one of those records. We wanted to make a vintage sounding record and keep the live approach, keep all the mistakes in, if you will. That said, I don't speak for myself, but the other guys are really good players, so that there's not a lot of mistakes in there.
Lusitanian Ghosts, it's a Portuguese, Canadian, Swedish, and apparently New York City project. Yeah. We're talking a little bit about the band itself and some of the different instruments. So tell me a little bit more about these Portuguese chordophones that you were talking about.
Yeah, so because I like I said, I grew up in Canada, but when I moved back to Portugal, my grandfather, who was still alive then, he knew I was playing music, and I had toured around Europe and played in different projects over the years. And he said, Portugal has this really rich heritage of these folk instruments. You should get to know these. And I'm like, okay. And when I looked into it, it was like you drive for like 150 kilometers and you're in a different region in Portugal, which is a really small country. And all of the different regions have different instruments. And it's like they look, they're not guitar size, but they're not as small as a ukulele, which, by the way, also came from Portugal. It's the cavaquinho that made its way to Hawaii when Portugal was sailing around the world back in those good and bad days of the so-called discoveries. But these chordophones are sort of like these small guitars. They're not as small as the ukulele. They're not as big as like a Gibson J45. And they have steel strings in different arrays and tunings and combinations of double and triple strings. So some of them might be like 10-string instruments. Others might be 12, 15, or even 18-string instruments. And you have to learn a whole new language with the left hand, because the chord patterns are different in the different types of instruments. So you have the viola braguesa from the Braga region, the amarantina from the city of Amarante, the beiroa from the Beiras and the Castelo Branco, and the campanisa from Alentejo. They're all different from each other, and yet they all sort of they're part of the same family of instruments.
Well, you are amazing, my friend. You know what is just because you're such a cool guy, because there's a lot of times I can't joke back and forth with the guests on the show, because there's a lot of times I get these musicians on the Sunday show and they're so serious, and they are to be appreciated for their art and all this. And I'm like, you're playing you're playing death metal. Calm down. Every song sounds like this. Calm down. But you remind me of that Peter Dinklage guy. Do you ever get that from people?
No,
the little midget guy from Game of Thrones or whatever. Peter Dinklage.
Oh, I've never seen Game of Thrones. Yeah, I've never seen it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think that's a good thing, because I've never seen Game of Thrones either.
All right, okay. No, I'm more of a Tolkien guy, I guess. I never really got into and I to be fair, I don't watch a lot of television. But
that's good. That's even better. You've never seen Game of Thrones and you don't watch much TV. You're on the right path, brother.
What was his surname? Peter what?
Peter Dinklage is his name.
I'll look him up.
You should look this cat up. He's gotten a reputation the last couple years in Hollywood of being just a drunk, but he's in everything, so he's got a good agent. He must have hired The Rock's agent, because he's in everything. But but we have got a great guest with us today. So you have got just crafted some amazing music here.
Thank you.
The next song we are going to play, and I am going to butcher this. I'm sure I'm going to butcher this. Exotic Quixotic? Is that how you pronounce that?
I'm unsure of that one myself. I call it Exotic Quixotic because of Don Quixote, but there
it is. That sounds so much better. That sounds so much better.
I guess. Yeah.
That sounds so much better because I'll tell you that the way I pronounced it is. It's Jiggy Jag the Ugly American. That's just how it is.
Here's Jiggy. Listen, here's the thing. That one is sung not by me, but by Mickey Ghost, our Swedish.
Okay, this is going to be my next question. Is Mickey
and
Ghost?
I love his voice.
Is Mickey Ghost his actual God-given name, Mickey Ghost, or is he or is that a gimmick? Because Mickey Ghost sounds such like a music name.
I'll tell you the story. When I first went to Sweden back in 2005, when I was making my last solo record in Canada still, and my Swedish label at the time put together a backing band for me to tour Sweden, so I didn't have to fly over with all the Canadian guys. And so when I got to Sweden, I was introduced to this guitar player named Mickey the Ghost. And I asked him, I said, so And he said, "Oh, my name is Mickey Lundin, but everybody calls me Mickey the Ghost ever since I was a teenager." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I just call him Mickey Ghost since way back when. When we start, and so at the time when I was touring in Sweden, that was Neil Leyton and the Ghosts, because the backing band ended up being called the Ghosts because of his nickname, right? Fast forward to starting up Lusitanian Ghosts, and the reason for that is the instruments, as I explained, but also it wasn't the same band. It wasn't the Swedish Ghosts. It was it was the Portuguese. So we had to, keep the Ghosts in there, and he had that nickname way before the band got together. So yeah.
Well, I always find it amazing when I have various people on, especially here on the Sunday show, because I can do all sorts of crazy things here.
Right.
But I interview. I've noticed that the one common thread between porn stars, rock stars, music people, pro wrestlers, everybody's got cool names. And so when I seen this Mickey Ghost thing, I'm like, that can't be his real freaking name.
Yeah, no, it's a nickname, but he's had it his whole life.
What would be fantastic is if Mickey Ghost ended up becoming the lead singer of the band Ghost. That would be.
Oh yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, that's right. There's are they still around, that band?
I think they're still around. I think they're still around. They did a cover fairly recently of some song from the 80s, and I'm like, this is horrible. So I think they need to fire their agent as well.
Right. Well, Mickey's probably, he's the amazing thing about working with Mickey is that on Exotic Exotic, he sings lead vocals on this track that you're going to play. But on the new album, he sings like 3 tracks, because I just love hearing him sing. So I'm sort of like little by little working on making myself redundant in Lusitanian Ghosts, so I can just sit back and listen. It's amazing. I can just, I love his voice. It reminds me a lot of David Bowie.
Well, we are going to do this. We're going to put you on another brief hold here on the old Skype, the old Skype-a-rooney, and we're going to play this track. What did you call it earlier? Because I love the way you called it.
Oh, Exotic Exotic.
That's it. That's it. We're going to go to that. We're not going to go to the way I call it, because the way I call it is ridiculous.
Plaster beauty waiting, standing tall on snow, broken civilization, imaginary woes. And when you look around now, there are windmills on the ground, ruins by Ionic towers, new letters leading to false gods, and still believe in the end that we can win it all. Exotic,
going to go back live to our guest. He is going to join us on the old Skip-a-Skype, the old Skype-a-Rooney. And we are going to wrap things up here with our next guest. He joins us, Neil, as we wrap up here with you, my friend, because I know our next guests are they look like they're going to jump both of us on Skype. So I think we need to wrap this interview up pretty quick.
It's been great, James. Thanks a lot. It's been amazing.
So Neil, before we let you go, because we definitely have to do this again, especially because you're such a cool guy, and I don't know if Andrew and the crew over there can hear me or not. Can you guys get off the mute or whatever there? You muted your mic. I need to bring you guys in for something here real quick.
Hey.
Okay. So, sitting here with our previous guest here, Neil, from Lusitanian Ghosts, does he not look like Peter Dinklage from the damn Game of Thrones?
Pretty close.
See?
Pretty close.
See? He didn't know who the hell Peter Dinklage was, so he's going to go Google it. So now
you guys tell me. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You tell me.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's great, yeah.
I think it's a great thing.
We'll call him J. Fox Jr.
Really? Wow.
He does kind of have
Well,
that
thanks,
look.
James.
I think that's great.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
You've got to go look up this Dinklage character now. But Neil, before we let you go, how do people buy your music, get involved with what you're doing? And as I always like to say when I plug the GoFundMes, give them some of your hard-earned money.
All right, so you can go to LusitanianGhosts.net, and of course we're all the digital platforms, and our vinyl records are available to ship worldwide, distributed by Broken Silence out of Germany.
That's awesome. You know, you've dropped several references today to various countries. When we used to have Ross the Boss, the rebel rousing ringleader, when anyone used to say Canada, he would always go Canada. So you've said Canada a few times. And then you mentioned the fact that your music is available from a group in Germany. You remind me of that Opie and Anthony bit that they used to play, where they had the city council guy who would go Germany, and so that is good stuff. Well, Neil, you have been fantastic. This has been amazing. I look forward to chatting with you, and maybe next time we can get you and Mickey Ghost on, so I can tease him about how in his next life he will be the lead singer of the band Ghost. So I won't have to do much of the changing of the last name or anything. But Neil, thanks for doing this, baby. I really appreciate it. We will talk to you soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, James, and you guys have a blast. Take care.
Thank you. So,
Bye
Andrew, let's transition into you. Tell me a little bit about what